This here is my second channel going live. Poof. And it's just all black screen. That's fine. I just want it to pick up the audio that we're doing here today. All right, here's the Discord. I'm going to have this up. If you'd like to talk to me, get on Discord if you're not already, and get on the microphone. I'll hear you. Let me get in here. Hey, man, Overboard, you have your open mic on? If you want to.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's on.
You're not making any sound in the background, so that's fine. You're all good, man. So yeah, just a testing it out.
Cool. I'm not sure how all this stuff works either.
That's all good. I'm gonna make you a full member because I have heard your voice now in the room. So I come over here, right click.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
Hit rolls. Now he's a full-fledged member because he's got on mic. And you can be a full-fledged member too if you're not already in the Discord server. Get up on that, and we'll be good to go. You're gonna see a different version of me from this point forward on my second channel. It's going to be 100% me, not defensive political tool wielding YouTube channel Joe, who's doing the only thing that's going on the island of Hawaii, but Joe, who's now coordinated and teamed up with all kinds of people here in Dallas-Fort Worth area. There's not going to be any swearing. There's not going to be any aggro. It's going to be nothing but calm, cool, collected, while laughing, professionalism, and bringing the pain to them as politely as possible. Always keeping the jury in mind, always using Socratic method, always using logic, ethics, and actual reality. All right. Yeah, that second channel is coming up, and we'll get more details about that. What up, Rika? Gypsy, trunk or bust? Foreign user, where's the Discord link? Good question. The Discord link, if I'm not mistaken, is in... Oh, I should look at my stream. I'm doing it through here early because of the SpaceX launch, but I'm not sure what happened with the actual scheduling I had. It might be sitting there waiting for me to do something. But yeah, I know what I'll do. Oh, I'm live now. So check it out. I'll open up my own stream and I'll put it in the comments. In fact, I already saved it, so I just got to paste it. Going to take a minute to load. Oh man, I cannot hear anything on Discord. That's fine. I'm not talking on Discord yet. What are you filming with your laptop?
Talking on Discord. Filming with your laptop.
Oh, see, I got feedback. Okay, check it. Poof.
Oh, see, I got feedback. Okay, check it. Poof.
Right there is in the comments is the Discord server. So y'all can click on that. And there you go. That'll lead you to Discord. I'm going to turn that volume off so I don't get feedback. But yeah, I'm just chilling in this like kind of office space area. This is the new drone I got. I can practice flying through that thing with the camera there, sitting on an upside down American flag, of course. I got my blue snowball mic out so everybody can hear everything. I can take your calls on Discord so we can role play, whatever you want to do that way. Responding to your comments, and then we might get a guy in here who has an actual trial coming up on Friday and do some role play with him. Plumber, how much money is 18 days in jail worth, Joe? And 13 days in jail, you mean? He did 13 days? I'm not sure, but we're going to find out. Settlement should be high 5 figures, maybe 6 is what I'm guessing. But if we turn down the settlement check, who knows what it could be if it goes to a jury. After all, the transcript and the recording of what actually happened in there is, again, ridiculously abusive. This is sweet. So I can see all your comments here nice and easy. Let me get back to Discord here. All right, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in Discord. We can just start there. If is anybody in Discord? Anybody up to bat here? Anybody want turn number 1? You can ask me anything. You can bring up anything. You can role play anything. What you got? Haha, nobody's saying nothing. That way I get to talk about myself some more. Oh, you're going to make it too easy.
All right, I'll toss the first question. It's a weird one. What do you Google when you look for porn?
Porn? What's that? That's as far as porn is concerned with this channel. You got to ask me that on the DL, but trust me, the answer isn't nearly as interesting as you might imagine. I'm pretty tame with my porn.
All right, that's pretty easy to follow, guys.
That was a good question.
I had a question.
All right, sir. What's your what do you want to be called, and where are you calling from, roughly, if you want to say?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, go ahead. Pretend Chew.
You can, yeah, you can just call me Brett, or Pretentious, or Jason.
All right, Jason it is. And these are all uncensored, so I'm hoping to get some crank calls. I'm hoping to get some of the opponent in here. That would be dope. That would be cool. But go ahead, man. What up?
Yeah, I was gonna see where you stand religiously or spiritually, like with God and all that.
Ooh. So my big thing is I don't know for sure. I'm okay with the I don't know. I don't have a problem with anybody else believing what they want to believe. My whole thing is if you're happy and doing good things in this world, more power to you. I don't care if you believe in Barney the dinosaur. It must be God, for real. I have my own personal feelings about it, but that's not something I share publicly. You know, I don't even share it with people that are close to me. You got to be super close to me to hear that stuff. But it's nothing too out there. I mean, it's just all based on personal experience. We all got our own. I find it unlikely that there's a humanoid God. I think we're kind of mid-evolution, but I don't see why he would look like the way we do now. But who knows? You know, a lot of people put their credibility on this is just all some kind of advanced simulation. So there's all kinds of shades of gray in there. That's what I got to say about it. I don't really have one strong opinion or the other. My problem isn't with the belief in something more powerful than us all. My problem is in the obedience against logic and ethics in following something that is so easily corrupted by a few in power who wish to use it for their own purposes. The obedience and blind following of that without question is kind of the only problem I have.
Do you know are you familiar with D&D at all? Like the lawful neutral, chaotic good, chaotic neutral, lawful evil, chaotic evil? Like that whole...
I'm not familiar with those terms. Where are these terms coming from?
Well, they originate from Dungeons and Dragons, but they happen to be a good way to like kind of not label, but kind of characterize yourself or somebody. Like a lawful good would be somebody who is good, who does what they think is good and obeys the law no matter what. A chaotic neutral. Damn, I'm not very good at describing this.
Yeah, you got a little backwards to your own terms. Lawful, neutral, and chaotic good. I mean, I kind of get where you're going, but let me turn this back to our court speak. Lawful is just a word that we look at sideways because we all know what is implied with the word lawful. But in some ways, it's confused with what's acceptable, like ethically, but morally even. But because words are so important to us, especially when we're talking about legalese and how that's intertwined in common English to manipulate us all, we look at the root of everything and the actual reality of everything. And when I look at trying to get a definition of law, like, hey, is it physically tangible? Can I put my hands on a piece of paper that's a law, got a law written on it, that's labeled as a law, that is enforced? Is there anything like that? I see no. There is not a damn thing like that. There's a constitution. I can put my hands on that. I can put my hands on things they call statutes and codes, but I can't put my hands on anything that's a law. They don't even claim, U.S. law, subsection B, paragraph A. They don't do any of that. So law has been borrowed from what I feel. This is just my own thing now here. The word law goes way back in science. Law of gravity, law of thermodynamics, things like this. And it's a word that means this is so accurately predictable that every single time we run this experiment, we get the same result. Now, that doesn't mean we'll always get it, but it happens every single time we do it now. And it's so reliable, we're going to call it a law, like the law of gravity. You're always going to fall toward the earth. Well, the lawyers, of course, wanted to borrow that level of credibility. And so they just said, oh, we're going to make our stuff a law. So just as stable, just as solid in people's heads. But that's, they just turned it into a vague cloud type word and raised everybody to believe, oh, you must obey the law, or ooh, boo, that guy's an outlaw, or this is a lawful order. But the only thing that law actually means in the 21st century, as far as I can tell, and everybody's heard me say this before, and this is direct from, I got this from Gary, as I have many things. The law, to me, is nothing but the opinion of the senior ranking bar member in the room, which is usually a judge, or conjecture as to what that opinion might be. So the word law just means what will a judge do? And as we know, judges are arbitrary and corrupt because power corrupts. And so we kind of avoid the word lawful, or we use it in the context where we understand what's going on here, what's being implied. Let me spend a little quick time on my Gabe. I hear you, man. I see you there. Oh, wait, let me bring those back up. Decomplier, man's law is not equal to natural law. Gabe doesn't want to sign and get into Discord. Figured out, homie. Tommy, law is a wall. Okay.
So what do you think about a law that is it a moral question whether or not somebody obeys the law or abides by the law?
Well, what is it that they're obeying when you say the law? What do you mean specifically, right?
Well, there's obvious ones like the property rights, like you wouldn't go into someone's home or you wouldn't steal from a store because it's the law, but it's also morally wrong. But is it morally wrong to break a law in the absence of some other kind of morality? Like if there was no law against stealing from somebody, you could steal from them.
Well, people steal from each other even though there's a law against it, right? Theft is a violation of ethics. To take instead of make is wrong, and that's easily identified by everybody. We have that innately. Any 2-year-old knows that. Don't take his toy. So it doesn't take a law to get people to know that feels inherently wrong. It leads to violence. And I don't need a judge or anyone else who has more power than I do because they bribed a bunch of men with guns to tell me that that's wrong and therefore you need to obey it, because law equals morals. Law equals the will of the state, and the state borrows the credibility of actually prosecuting actual crimes of violence with injecting its own extortion schemes, these nonviolent victimless crimes, to forever get more and more and more and more money for more and more and more power, control, and bribery. It's just a sophisticated gang using the word law to justify its corrupt actions and violence against innocents, in my opinion.
So in your view, it's like the existence of the law is kind of an immoral thing to begin with because it's predicated on control of people when there's not even a expressed victim.
When the law falls in line with logic and ethics, then it is correct and justified. When it does not, it is not. It's that simple. Logic and ethics trump law. Laws are written by flawed human beings and therefore not to be trusted. Everyone knows already it's not okay to kill, rape, murder, assault, extort. We all know this. We don't need laws to know this.
Yeah. So law is kind of an unnecessary thing. It should be.
Well, I wouldn't say that. The world is full of sheep. The world is full of undereducated people. And those people like to follow laws. So if there were no laws, then, things might get a little bit crazy because there's not a monopoly, coercing everybody to obey a certain way. I mean, I don't want to dismantle everything. I'm not taking apart very complex system I don't have any hope of understanding the totality of, and then saying, hey, replace it with mine. No. I'm like way more humble than that. I'm not that smart.
Are we going by like rolling cannons though?
Rolling cannons? Boy.
Yeah, the Roman cannons, like
use the moral and immoral things. What do you feel about when someone says malin se or mal prohibitive, the legal terms or terminology?
So malin se is an actual crime. Malin prohibitum is just something they say, oh, we're going to prohibit you from doing this because we say so. They're Latin terms that it's good to be familiar with, but honestly, to be more detailed than that is kind of, okay, nice to know. But people aren't convinced by Latin terms in the here and now. It's nice to know roots, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't. But that's not really a selling point that the general public of sheep tend to go, oh, okay, I get it, you know. Just trying to catch up with what everyone's saying here. We got a lot of a Bible parable going on in the comments section. We got comments going on in Discord too. We got more and more people joining the Courtroom Sim Time group. What are we up to? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in there. 40 on YouTube, 41 on YouTube. Let me talk real quick about this new channel I'm making as a break here. Real quick, and then keep your train of thought. So the new channel name is called Ethics Instead. And then my nickname after that, the nickname being Bowman X, just like it is here in Discord. And you'll find out why soon enough when another product is ready to launch. All of my live streams are going to be uploaded to Ethics Instead that I do here in Dallas-Fort Worth. All these professional ones where I'm not all trying to be all aggro to get these crazy people off me. I'm just being straight Socrates as much as I can. So if you want to look that channel up, you know, I'll have links to it after this is over. You can follow it that way too. I'm going to be starting tomorrow morning at a courthouse. I'm going bailiff watching with 2 other people tomorrow morning. And I'm really going to be putting some stuff on video that's never really been said before. Hopefully to cause looks of confusion and guilt on people that have never looked that way before. So we'll see what happens. While laughing, of course. Always while laughing.
Are you going to be able to live stream that tomorrow?
It will be live streamed on
that's amazing.
2 other channels. I'm probably just going to be filming it in HD and not live streaming and then uploading it later. But
okay.
Yeah, you will have access to that live stream. I'll link it and you'll know what's up. If you're not following Bao's channel, I recommend that. His channel is called Clash of Clans, CLANS. He likes to play this game. That's what it's called. But he's really getting into the cop watching side of the game, and he's just uploading it all up on one channel. So, I mean, when you think about it, what we do can be seen as a Clash of Clans as well.
But Clash of Clans is like a corporate channel. How do I find his actual channel, the one you're talking about?
No, it's on YouTube. That's the name of it.
Clash
Wait.
of Clans.
Wait. Let me verify that 1 second. I'm probably
I just searched it and it came up with like the official Clash of Clans YouTube page.
Yeah, my bad.
For the video game itself.
1 second.
Not for a person.
It's called Clash with Bao, dummy.
Clash with Val.
No, with Bao. His name is
Bao.
B as in boy, A-O.
Oh, Val.
Yeah, subscribe to his stuff because, man, he's invaluable. He's really good naturally at this cop watching thing. He's just making streams and having people laughing, and that's the name of the game. He's real good at it too, verbally. So, heck yeah.
Sup?
What's up, everyone?
What up? Pantier, I see you. Hello. And Sam Allen, hi from Alaska. Did you move to Texas? Yes, I did. Eric Machelik, YouTube, yeah, Clash with Bao. Gabe wants to know who is moderator. What do you mean? Where? Boot the virtue signaling Bible quoter. I got respect for how do I put this? I have respect for the archetypal themes and stories that are successfully passed on generation after generation that hold true for humanity. Some of those are written in the Bible, and that I respect. So, cool. You want to quote some stuff? All right. Rika says Joe has no moderator. That's pretty much true. I tried to not be a moderator. Why? Because, in anarchism, there is no leader. There are no rulers. There are plenty of rules, and those are logic and ethics, right? We're down with following that, but no rulers. People who are responsible for their own actions don't need to be ruled.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, society would be a great place if basically everyone just has to hold everyone else accountable, and including themselves, and then things seem to work out best. But I don't know how that really plays out. Like you mentioned, there are always those like sheeple, normie people that just don't care about that, or they want to take advantage of the rest of us.
This is true.
Personal responsibility. All about everybody being personally responsible for themselves, their environment, the community they're a part of, and if people took personal responsibility and they didn't voice like the responsibility of protection or taking care of the poor off onto some third-party government. If everyone just handled things directly, that's what anarchism would be.
It would be a lot easier. Let me switch to some comments here. Good point, by the way. Good point. John Jonah Jameson writes, ethical anarchism articulated, what do you plan to gain from this new venture? Right now, I am scheduled to start working like 50 plus hours a week. And I'm doing that so that I can make the good money to bring in the equipment, the resources, the people to do everything that I've got in my head out into reality. To do everything that I was able to do on Hawaii and to spread that out here as much as it can be, depending on how strong it is, the quality of it. I don't know what that will lead to, but what I do see is that there are a lot of cop watchers out there that are kind of missing the mark a little bit. Some of them are dead on, but none of them know how to do in courtrooms what I've learned to do. I say that humbly, but they haven't. And when they do, they'll be that much more effective against cops and lawyers, because everybody's easier than a judge. You get your brain turned on to thinking Socratically, and as soon as somebody slings some bullshit at you, you don't just have one answer, you have 5 answers, and your job is to just determine which of those answers is most effective. A claim will go through your head, and you got to convert that as quickly as possible into a Socratic question. And the whole point is, again, just to convince the third-party objective viewer fence-sitter types that they are the violent bullies, despite what ideas they were raised with, and that the people who are holding cameras in front of them and trying to hold them accountable are only doing so to protect the innocent. These nonviolent victimless crimes have to go. I'm looking to get the legislative body to draft legislation that will allow audio recording by anybody's cell phone for their own hearing in a courtroom. That single act will drastically change how the local Fort Worth courthouse does business. And because Fort Worth is one of the most corrupt cities in America. Not only my own observations, limited observations, but actually talking to lawyers who work here. It's come from their own mouth. This hasn't been uploaded yet, but there's lots of material that is going to be uploaded, and that one's thanks to Bao, by the way. Lawyers saying how they don't even bother to bring up federal cases in Fort Worth because of how corrupt the judges are, how old they are, how obsolete they are, how stuck they are. They often run completely unopposed, as Cheryl Hardy just did in this past March election, and she won with like 78,000 votes to 0. So by bringing in audio recordings to courtrooms, if they don't write that legislatum, we're going to be putting all kinds of pressure on them to do that. Now, how do I know that'll be effective? Damn it, I keep forgetting the name of it. Something Park. What just happened in San Antonio? Osmos Park? Damn it, I forgot. But anyway, what just happened in San Antonio on April 7th, where the little county council, oh no more long gun open carry here. And then they arrested somebody on a video, tased him. A couple people were filming it and all this. What happens? Several hundred people show up, open carry long guns in their town, and they call an immediate emergency session and repeal that rule that they put down. Now it's again legal to open carry in that town. And that's all it is. If enough people do it, they can't jail us all. They become powerless. That's why Skype exists. That's why Uber exists. That's why cryptocurrencies exist. Because when enough people are doing it, they are powerless. So I'm just spitting out a bunch of stuff that I'm hoping to, not me alone, obviously. There's 7 million people around here. I'm just one. But I'm hoping to, big picture, main answer, to get responses from bailiffs, cops, lawyers, judges, mayors, legislators, all of them. Answers that have just never been heard before, because I'm asking questions they've never had to face before. Quicker than they can manage, more relentless than they've ever witnessed. I mean, it's coming. My brain is just going off when it comes to this stuff. I mean, I don't know how that works, but I'm just able to do it. I don't know why. I just am. So I'm hoping that will kind of have an effect. I'm already networked up with some well-known content creators. Like, I've only been here 5 weeks. Like, I've got a guy with a professional studio. There's a guy named Patrick Smith running for governor, except not. So he's got a website called notgovernor.com. You can check that out. He's in debates with other libertarian retards who are obviously bought and paid for, who are not saying anything of substance, who are not responding whatsoever with realistic solutions. They ignore obvious consequences. The level of quality of those debates is very low, except when it comes to him. So this place is hopping, man. This place is hopping. It's getting more and more ready every day. I just watched Dow live in a sheriff's office. People telling him he can't record. It's illegal. You're still going to do it. And he just blows right past them. Next thing you know, he's in the building with their full approval. It's got, these big sheriffs, watching him, questioning him. I don't have to answer your questions. Just kicking tail. And he's so relatively new to this. He only started in October. So there's just so much potential. These fruits are ripe for the picking. I'm going to put my Discord in there again. People keep asking for it. Uh-oh.
I would add in this. Now I've had one success story. I feel a lot more confident dealing with these bullies.
All right, go ahead. Who's listening? Who's talking? Sorry, I'm on Discord now.
I was just saying, Joe.
Jay. What up, Jay?
How you doing? You good?
Yeah, man. How's it?
Yeah, now that I have that one success story, I feel so much more confident at dealing with these bullies.
Yeah, Jay, why don't you briefly tell us about your recent success story? How that concluded?
Well, I watched an officer be very rude and abusive to another person. So I stepped in and he decided to forcefully try and threaten me and throw me to the floor. I punched him in the face. I got arrested for being violent, ABH, I think the charge was. And also, my license was revoked. So I was driving with no insurance and driving with no license. I went to court, and after 2 years, they finally dropped the case.
It only took 2 years? Wow. No. Yeah, Jay's really been at it. And by drop the case, you mean you got all the charges dismissed. So it's like it didn't even happen according to your record.
Yeah, well, the ABH charge actually went to Crown Court and I got found not guilty for. But the driving offences, I fought a magistrate tooth and nail for the rest of the time. And eventually, lack of jurisdiction, the case was dropped. Nice.
Well done, Jay. Jay if you want to talk more to Jay about that, how he enjoyed that success, you can join Discord. He's on there in the group, and you can get hooked up. Gary is with us. I don't know if he's on microphone or able. Oh, I just saw him turn his microphone. Boom.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Gary has graced us with his presence. What up, Gary?
Hello.
What's up, Gary?
Long time. It's been I guess a week or two is a long time. What the heck do you got going on? I'm doing some craziness tonight. What's going on in your world?
Oh, not too much. I'm glad to hear some craziness.
For any of you who have some questions that you might be stuck on, now would be the time to ask them. Anything to do with judges, lawyers, what they do in court, why they do it, procedures, tactics, questions for Gary himself. My gosh, I've learned some new things about Gary recently that were, well, they're, what are they, Gary? They're enlightening. They're enlightening. That's what they are.
What you're talking about. Oh, that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So if anybody's got any questions, Gary's actually on the line all the time. Like, last night and the night before that, Gary, I had, oh man, I'd like to talk to Gary. And I'm like, well, you know, you might catch him on here one of these times in Discord. Well, you know, he's on now. So if somebody's got something, I'm watching the comments on YouTube too.
I mean, for example, at the moment, my sister is giving birth nearby in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, my time always is a lot going on. I'm good for now.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Wow. That's yeah, that's something.
Stay busy.
I got a question, Gary.
What's up?
I read that camera ticket, and I just wanted to know if you had any just thoughts about.
Oh, let me
I
fill
am in the heart of the camera ticket ordeal that happened in the U.S. We were one of the trial cities trying to push it through and trying to get it upheld a few times. You know, so that they could kind of spread it out from there after getting some wins under their belt with some corrupt areas we got. My little home city here was one of the main most corrupt, I guess, areas. So they started with that. So what's, I mean, generally just what to do about it, or what?
Just general arguments that maybe you know, aren't.
How did?
You got a letter that said, "Pay us." Here's a photo of why you should pay us.
There we go.
Right, I didn't even get a photo. They just sent a letter, notice, pay us, pay us, pay us, and then on the back says you want to go to court. Yeah.
Well,
Sorry, logistics.
Or ask for a trial. Is that something like what what they tried to present?
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
More or less. How many more? How many less?
Okay. Specifically, yeah, it was like if you don't want to pay $500 for the ticket, let's go up here. If you don't want to pay $500 for the ticket, you have to go to court for an arraignment. And,
Okay. So here's the question: Did you take that at face value as true? Well, what makes you believe they were telling you the honest, complete story?
just inexperienced.
Okay. So they said your choices are A or B, and both of them was like, you know, would you like to shoot yourself in the left foot or the right foot? Which kind of screw would you like to be?
Right.
All right. So, the questions in my mind in those situations, again, this is not specific to this. There's some other bit information kind of comes into play with light tickets, but you're given, when a lawyer or a judge or someone presents you with two choices, presenting you with their two favorite choices. Now, say your choices are A or B, or I'm going to throw you in jail immediately. Take that one a little bit different, because that would come up as well. But if they say A or B and leave off B, or I'm going to throw you in jail immediately, kind of about, are you intending to inflict violence if I choose something other than these two?
What the letter specifically said was, if you don't do either one of those, and your court date comes and goes, and you don't show up, then it's another $300 automatically, and then they're going to put a bench warrant out, and they may or may not arrest you.
So they give you three choices: A, B, or C. C being sit back and let us do our thing.
Right, and they're going to suspend your license.
Okay, now hold on. That doesn't change my point, because there are other choices. Because they give you three, their top three choices doesn't mean your top three choices from their perspective is all there is still.
Okay.
So let's start thinking about what other choices there might be for you to do. And have you in kind of looking up and coming across this stuff, heard of any keywords that might kind of describe this process topic?
No, I'm kind of
okay. Words like skepticism or challenge would be good. So,
right, okay.
So you should be skeptical about their presentment that there's only 3 choices, and perhaps challenge that idea and ask them outright. Are you saying that if I choose something other than these 3 choices, that you're going to inflict some violence or what? Because there's another choice, which is challenge. Asking them, do they have any evidence that the codes apply to you? Do they have any evidence, do they wish to state a full case rather than just alluding to one? And I know I'm probably using phrases that are kind of like, if you're not familiar with all the lingo, they might be kind of off-putting. But
I'm somewhat familiar. I've been kind of into this thing for about 3 months, 4 months maybe. And
okay.
I was actually kind of excited when I got the letter about the ticket. I was like, all right.
Oh God. But okay, so they've given you a summary of their position. They've left a bunch out, right? So what do you think they've left out? What brings to your mind about the main thing they left out of this letter?
Yeah.
It's basically like an extortion scam. It's
okay. I get you. So they've given you the 3 choices, and obviously you're leaving things out. So let's kind of brainstorm the things that you might care most about that they're leaving out.
The fact that the court can't even hear the matter because it's not an adversarial position to be in. There's no one that's in a harm. You know what I mean? The authority of the courts can't be enlarged by police authority. The power of the court can't.
I'm sorry. Do you mean literally the building can't be enlarged? Okay, what are you pointing to when you said the courts can't be enlarged by police authority? What is it that you're saying can't be enlarged?
Caliphate hearing.
Okay, what is that thing? The thing? Can you point to it and tell me about it? that you're talking about enlarging or something?
They're limited. There's types of cases they can hear.
Hold on. Is it bigger than a bread box?
Yeah, I guess I was just using the language I read in the code.
But I'm asking you about a thing. You just said something and then went on to describe it in different ways. And I'm asking you what you're trying to, what you're trying to discuss. What is the topic? What is the thing that you're trying to discuss? And you keep telling me different qualities of it, but I'm trying to figure out what you're pointing to.
Okay. Their own rules say that they can't hear members outside.
Hold on. You're saying their own rules can't be changed by some process?
No. Yeah,
okay.
They're limited. They're limited in the types of cases they can hear.
Okay. How do you know this to be true?
It's what
because I hear about them hearing all kinds of cases all the time.
Right.
And certainly I hear them ruling and going about cases just like the one you're talking about all the time. So it happens all the time. Agreed?
Absolutely, I agree, 100%.
Okay, so you just said it couldn't happen, but now you're agreeing that it does happen every day. So I hope I understand what you meant.
I didn't say it couldn't happen. I just say I read in the codes, their own codes and statutes, that the courts are limited to types of cases.
Obviously, okay. let's back up on stuff. You said it's limited. Limited means something can't go past that, right? Like a fence limits your passage into the yard.
It's only limited if you know about it. They're going to try to do what they want.
So I know a lot of people who know precisely about all of this topic, and still their cases are heard every day, and they're ruled against every day. So I'm still trying to figure out what you're talking about. Well, I'm actually goading you into thinking about it, really. So sorry to play dumb, but I'm playing coy a little bit here so that I can make a point.
Right. Okay. I guess it was my interpretation of what they had posted online, their own rules, and say their power is limited.
Okay, so your interpretation of their rules has them as being far from behaving than their interpretation of their rules has them behaving. Is that a good summary?
My interpretation of the rules is far different than their actual activity.
Okay. Well, we know their activity is things that happen. So rules and things that happen are very different things.
Right.
So your interpretation of the rules is obviously very different than their interpretation of the rules, which kind of inspires them to act in certain ways. Are we now getting closer to what you're talking about?
Right. Yeah. It doesn't seem like there was a consistency. It's like, well, it says right here you have to have a valid cause of action, and that contains these certain elements.
But they're very consistent in their own interpretation, in their own benefit, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I can pretty easily predict how they're going to rule just by looking at what their own interests are.
Right.
And ignoring what the thing says, because that's just public relations nonsense. You can say it how you like, and then interpret it to a way that kind of gets you what you want.
I really...
Okay, so back it all the way up. Sorry. That was all just so that I could understand what you said at the very beginning.
All right.
Let's start it over with what the point you were trying to make about limits of something.
Right. My understanding or my interpretation of what I read was that the courts can, it's called a valid cause of action. They're limited to hearing what is called a valid cause of action means.
Okay. And you agree that this isn't an interpretation that anyone in their ordeal shares, right?
I don't understand what you're saying. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. So you know that obviously they don't limit themselves because we just kind of...
Yeah, clear. That's obvious.
So you're telling me about an interpretation you wished mattered in the world that it doesn't, right?
Well, my question is, why write it down if it doesn't?
Why are they
dishonest? Why are they so dishonest?
That's a great question. Why write it down? Because it helps them with their public relations. But it's not, they don't want it to influence their collections.
Yeah, well, it doesn't, but I just wonder what would happen if you brought it up. How are they going to respond to that?
If you bring up your interpretation of laws, their response is generally going to be pretty cold and uncaring, and you're going to be wondering why. But if you like, there's tons and tons of videos of that out there.
No, the why isn't so much, but it's like how else can you interpret it? And how can you?
They don't need to tell you about how they interpret it. They just tell you the conclusion. No, you don't have you have the right to be informed of the cause and nature of the proceedings. You don't have the right to their inner thoughts about interpretation.
Well, it's kind of like I don't want to make a challenge. I want to keep asking questions and stay democratic about it, but it's kind of like I would like to be able to have a technique or a tool to pull out of my toolbox and use to get them to explain how it works in their mind. How is that logic even?
That's an outstanding goal. I mean, I've devoted many, many years of my life to it now. So I find that a good goal. So the tools involved in all that is finding things that they care about for their public relations from within that court setting, not the public relations that they care about from the political, like legislative setting, but rather the court setting, and kind of knowing there's kind of a little bit of a difference in the strategy and perspective.
Or a complete disconnect.
I'm about to get cut off. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, 1 second, really quickly. I hear a little bit of background. King Ninja, sorry, 1 second. I hear a little background. Man overboard, can you, I know you're not on push to talk, but something's going on in your background that's constantly has your thing activated. Yeah, thanks. Actually, it's King Ninja, but that's fine. I don't mind. Go ahead, King Ninja. What up?
What happens if someone frames you for no reason? And you still go to jail for no reason.
your voice is a little bit garbled. I heard the second thing you said, but not the first. Can you say that again?
What happened if you go to jail for no reason?
Well, you're gonna have to be a little more specific, you know, than you're in jail. Is your question, what do you do about it?
Like somehow you came like in the store and someone else is wearing the same thing, like robbing the store and at the same time like you have the same clothes, and they just framed you for no reason and they thought it was you.
Ah, I see. Well, that's a difficult position to be in. Tell me how old you are, man.
12.
Nice. I think that sets a new record for me. I don't mind getting 12-year-olds in here asking questions like that. That's good on you. Well, you basically have to use what we call the Socratic method of investigation to question upon what evidence do they rely to link the crime they say was committed with the person that they're accusing of committing it. And when you do that through written documentation to the prosecutors in the court. You do that through your words in the courtroom. And our goal is to effectively point out how illogical and unethical their actions are so that the public listening in the courtroom and hopefully online will see that they don't have any actual factual evidence backing up their allegations, and that they're only assuming that what their opinions are true, so that it fits their narrative, quite often so that they can earn money or put someone in jail. And it's not an easy task. It's something that has to be learned, but it's not too difficult to learn. It does take some practice. And unfortunately, it's difficult to do while someone's in jail. But, you know, hopefully they have people around them who support them, who can help them to, you know, beat false charges. Did I explain that? I kind of talked a lot there. Did I explain that okay?
Yeah, kind of. I think so. I learned more here than school somehow.
You were what here? Say that again, sorry.
Somehow I learned more here than school.
Oh, you learned more here than school. Yeah.
Yeah.
What have you learned here?
I haven't went everywhere because I was delayed a little bit, hurt like a little bit. So I didn't get the full detail sometimes. Just thanks for telling me that.
Oh, that's okay. This has happened to you or someone you know in real life?
No, I remember I was watching the news one time and someone got fraud. It was like a doppelganger.
Oh, I see.
So, and that described like the same person, the same thing they were wearing. So that's why I said it.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that there are times when the wrong person is accused and even convicted and has to go to jail when they did not commit the crime. In fact, the only kind of lawyer that I like is the lawyer that works for what's known as, I think it's called the Freedom Project. And all they do is try to get people out of jail who are innocent. And they do that by demanding that the evidence that was used against them be tested with the technology that we have today. Because these crimes might have happened 10, 15, 20 years ago when that technology wasn't available. And they prove that that person couldn't have committed the crime and has been in jail as an innocent human being all this time. And they actually get him out of jail and then get him a nice little chunk of money to start a life with. So
everybody in jail, don't you know that already?
Oh, everybody's innocent. Don't you know that already? Yeah, well, some people actually are. And, you know, King Ninja, the value of knowing how to defend yourself in a courtroom cannot be underestimated. If those people had known how to challenge the claims of lawyers and judges, how to question the evidence, they might not have ever had to go to jail. Because maybe, I don't know if you're aware, but you probably are. You sound pretty smart. A lot of times when a bad crime is committed, there's pressure on the police and the lawyers to solve it, to satisfy the public fear that they are able to catch the bad guys. And if that means they have to put the wrong person in jail to have the public believe that they're good at their job, they sometimes do that. And it's really sad and unfortunate when that happens. But the best way to make sure that you or your loved ones are safe from that is to, learn how to question people who say things that aren't true. And that's, again, called the Socratic method of investigation. See, it's just like the scientific method of investigation, where scientists try to determine if something that they think might be true is true through experiments. We can use the Socratic method of investigation to try to find out if what cops and lawyers are saying is true is actually true. And it's a very valuable skill to have, and they really should be teaching it in school from the time we're 5, 6, 7 years old. That's what we're trying to do, is make the world a more fair place so that we don't have to listen to 12-year-olds be exposed to such an awful thing, that could happen, that somebody who's innocent could go to jail for 20 years because they don't know how to defend themselves. So it's never too early to learn this. And in my opinion, it's one of the most important things a person can know. I have a daughter, and she's a late teenager right now. And for sure, she's familiar with how to defend herself this way, but even still, not nearly as much as I'd like. Lucky for her, she's kind of in a group of people that rarely get any trouble from the police. But obviously, not everyone is lucky enough like that. What do you think about all? I'm just really curious to hear more of your opinions about anything you have to say about any of this.
I was thinking about something else, just I forgot it. And my other question is, how do you know this much stuff? Are you working with the FBI and the government or something like that?
Well, gosh, how do I answer that question? How do I know this much stuff? Okay, here's how I know. I mean, I'm sure you know, even at the age of 12, that pain is part of life, just like joy is. And when you get to be an adult, pain can get much worse and joy can get much better. And human beings seem to be made so that when they feel intense pain, it motivates them to act so that they avoid that pain in the future. And one day, some police came in my house and took a bunch of things and kind of made a mess, and then wanted to put me in jail for a year. And that worried me a lot, and it caused me a lot of pain. And this wasn't the first time this had happened, but in other times I was able to figure things out and make the pain go away. So when this happened to me, I knew I was right, and I knew they were wronged. And I knew that I could convince the public, which is where all the power is, that I was right and they were wrong. And so I got online, just like you are right now, and I started asking people and searching for how to win. And I came across this way and that way and the other way. And then within a few months, I found what we do here through, well, another guy in this group named Gary Capps. You can see him there. I came across him, and he was speaking more common sense than anyone else I had ever heard in my life before. And I was very motivated, and I just practice, just like anything else. And I decided that I wasn't going to pay attention to fear, even if that got me in more trouble. I decided that I was going to put 100% effort into this for a while. And I just happened to be lucky enough to have a mind that runs a little bit faster than the average judge. And because of that, I was able to embarrass them because of the bad things they were doing. And if you do that enough, they get too embarrassed and they decide it's not worth it, and they stop doing this. And then everybody else obeys them because the judges have all the power. And so when I learned how to do that, I got interested in, once I helped myself, I was going to go, I can help other people and they can help me, and we can just sit around and talk about it. And it's great. And now it's 3 years later, and I didn't know it at the time, but I didn't know that, the future was going to have more conversations between the police and the public, and that a lot of things online would be censored. They wouldn't want people to teach these things or put YouTube videos up about these things. But the skill that you learn in a courtroom is useful everywhere else in life. And I'm trying to answer your question as best I can. That is how I came to know all this stuff, as you put it.
That's actually, I actually get it now. Sometimes I don't get it because I was learning disability. Like, I can't understand stuff, and I'm really slow at learning. I kind of get it, and I just remembered it. What happened if a police officer or someone killed someone for no reason, apparent reason, and they said it was self-protection, and they get left free, and they did it on purpose?
Well, sometimes that happens, and I will say this. It is very rare. Does it happen? Yes, and it happens more in this country than pretty much all other countries combined. But don't let that cause you to be afraid, because it's still very, very, very rare. I don't know a whole lot about police, but what I do know is that most every single time, even from the point of view of the police, anytime they have to shoot somebody, it's a bad, bad, bad day for them. Most all of the time. So, unfortunately, when that happens, if the police acted wrongly, then the public will lose faith in the police and their ability to protect them. And then the city will get sued, and they'll lose a lot of money. And because they don't want that to happen, they try to protect the police as much as they can, and the judges and lawyers are on the police's side. Now, I say that, but again, it's very rare. And what's encouraging is that more and more, the police are not getting, those police who do that horrible thing are not getting away with it. Police are now being charged with those crimes and sent to jail. And before, they never were. And that's why, well, they rarely were. And that's why all the adults here are talking, is to improve the way police and lawyers and judges act. so that they don't get away with doing bad things like that. And hopefully, when you get to be my age, it'll be such a better place that a 12-year-old then will say, wow, I can't believe that in the past that used to happen. It doesn't happen anymore because we have cameras and people are educated and they know we'll hold them accountable and they'll get in trouble. So they don't do that anymore. That's the whole goal, I guess.
Okay, I have another question. Do we have the technology to I know people used to hack other computers to see through the screen, right? I have a question. Can now the police or the government find the people? That's it.
What was the question? If the government finds the people?
If the government can find the people who hack the laptops and look through the cameras.
Oh, if they take the camera from the people, what happens? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, well, luckily, our cell phones, when they film the police, they put that footage, what they're filming, instantly is saved on the internet. And so even if the police were to grab the phone or the camera and break it, what the camera filmed is on the internet, not inside the camera anymore. And the police know this now. They know that even if they break the camera or take it, that what was filmed will still exist and will be used in court against them, and they will look like horrible bullies. And so now they're no longer as quick to do that. Now they're more acting nice and respectful because of the ability we have to do that with our cell phones. Gary's chirping in.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. I just didn't know you were back. That's all good. We got a 12-year-old here, Gary. Isn't that a trip?
That's a trip.
King Ninja, you got any other questions, man?
In hearing that. Oh, sorry.
I was thinking of something else. What happens if someone starts harassing you or starts putting bruises on you? Are you allowed to put charges on them?
Well, it depends, and that's the answer to a lot of questions like that. It depends. It depends on a lot of things, but if they're just being a bully, then
no, not a bully. They actually make you bleed or stuff like that.
Well, that's called assault, and it's a crime, and everyone agrees that that's a bad thing and a crime. And so sometimes the justice system, which means the police and the lawyers and the judges, sometimes what they do it makes sense. It's good. They take people who do bad things like that and they put them in jail so that they'll learn not to do things like that anymore. So yeah, you can file charges. You can talk to the police and say, this person is hurting this other person and it needs to stop and please do something about it. And because that's a serious crime, they will usually help you.
Well, is this happening to you?
No. Because my little brother, this girl liked him, and he didn't have feelings for her, and he said no, and she threw a rock on his head. That's why I said it.
Yeah, sometimes kids do silly things. And when I was 12, this is a true story. When I was 12 years old, there was a girl named Jessica, and she was bigger than me Because when you're 12, sometimes girls, they grow up faster than you. And she was bigger than the boys. And I heard that she liked me, but I didn't like her back. And she actually was like, wanted to fight me. She was kind of from a rough part of town, and she wanted to fight me, and I actually had to get a teacher involved so that I wouldn't have to hit a girl. But the point is,
the rough part, you mean the ghetto?
She happened to be from a military base. Not that a military base is a bad place, but some kids that come from them can be rough kids, yeah.
Oh, no.
But I mean, when you're 12 years old, if a girl is doing that, you don't have to tolerate that at all. It doesn't matter if she's a girl, because causing that kind of injury is the same no matter what you are. And she needs to be held accountable for that. And if her parents won't do it, then there are police who deal with people that young. You know, but that's a part of life, is learning how to deal with things, how to deal with people who do things that are bad to you, how to adapt to that and figure it out. It's never easy, especially when you're 12, but it is something that has to be dealt with, otherwise it'll get worse.
Is there something missing in the grown-ups around you that makes you feel that this is kind of your problem to solve? If I can ask that.
No, it's not that. It's mostly I'm always curious. I want to question everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, if I go to jail, and I get accused for no reason, like if someone broke my stuff, like in my house, I'm gonna have to get like more like security camera, stuff like that. That's why I'm asking these questions.
Wow. Do the grown-ups in your day-to-day not concern themselves with security cameras and stuff like that?
Oh, my parents, no.
They don't have anything they don't have anything they want to protect with a security camera?
Oh no, because we can't afford it because we're poor. I only did it because my bike started getting stolen, my expensive bike. Because I have to drive my bike to school. That's why.
I mean, you're online, so I mean, you have certain things already kind of covered. You know, cameras. There's sometimes interesting solutions about how to get a camera going. You know, on spare parts, so to speak, on stuff you can kind of scrounge up. You might want to look into that, like how to use like old throwaway phones and stuff like that. You know, broken phones and stuff.
Yeah, and some cell phones are even very inexpensive, brand new. You can get a cell phone with a camera in it for like $10, or $20, and you may not be able to make it so that what you film goes on the internet right away, but you'll still be able to film it with a phone. Because see, once you have something filmed, no one will disbelieve you. They will all believe you. And if you can get one of those phones and you have the internet right now, if you connect the phone to the internet, you can download an app that will make it much easier for you to film things that you want to film.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you questions later if I think about it.
Okay. You're really good at using Discord.
Because my friend told me about it, and I had another account. It was funny because I like making fun of username. It was called Nico Me. That was my username.
Will you type that into the chat? I didn't hear everything he said.
I don't know. We're going out over a couple different mediums, and he's 12, or they're 12, I should say. I don't know. I can't hear well enough to tell. But they're 12, and that might not be the coolest idea, Joe.
Oh no, I mean, I might have misheard him. I thought he was saying he was part of an app, and this was his thing, and he was trying to join a network or something.
No, I think he was mentioning a username.
Oh. Yeah, that's not. But the adults that are around you, King Ninja, will be able to help you with that.
Let's flip the subject.
It's hard to hear.
All right, so what do you? I studied Socrates and Sun Tzu, and I was just curious. Do you guys feel like you should get to know your judges before you go before them, or before you have to speak to them?
I don't know.
Like go out to drinks?
No, just like basic background research, what they've done, how they got there.
Well, I mean, that's a good proposition. What do you think? How do you think you would leverage such a knowledge? Let's say you had really good knowledge about religious and political and personal and family backgrounds on someone. What? How would you kind of translate that into worth the effort kind of thing?
Well, think about it. We try to use the Socratic method and the logical method. With the Socratic method, you can actually make it emotional and make it hit home, bring it down to a human level even further.
Okay, so I guess what I was saying was worth the effort, because getting personals on someone is a lot of work, and I know that a lot of people don't even put in the work to get get under the psychology involved in challenging, jurisdiction or even addressing some basic questions. Now, I'm totally with you where it's like, oh yeah, if someone gets to this level, totally get into, psychological questions that are particular to that person, so you can really customize, your perception of, like, instead of just dealing with like a generic human, you deal with like someone with his political and religious and family backgrounds to get an even better choice of how to, counter his crap and so forth. It's just, wow, that'd be like level 10. If someone really put in so much work to really understand the other fundamentals, I'm like, well, yeah, go there. But are you saying that that they maybe would want to forego some of the other role play and work in order to instead go for the personal?
What's your thoughts, Joe?
I was trying to help people get connected. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention all the way. I've got so many people making comments.
So the propositions are, if you're someone that's, I don't even know what level, but at a certain level of studying how to contend with court folk, and you're choosing whether to study the judge individually and get into his head as much as you can, learning about his family background and religion and all that kind of, personal stuff and personality influencing stuff, versus kind of continuing into the general tactics and stuff like that we're usually talking about.
I gotcha. So, okay. So, once you reach a certain level of proficiency, you worry much less about what any judge is bringing to the table, because they need to worry far more about what you're bringing to the table. If you do feel it's necessary to research some details on a judge, okay, what kind of lawyer were they? How long have they been a judge? Or have they been stuck in traffic court for 20 years and they're never being promoted past that? I mean, I don't know how useful that information is. What's far more useful is to feel them out through that softball process. Like, if I'm ever with a new judge, do they look like a tyrant? Do they look like, this isn't, obviously you can't tell just by how they look, but it's an indicator. Is it a male or female? Are they grumpy or cheerful? Are they spoken to with respect, or is all the coworkers with their eyes down avoiding them? When you start with the softball questions, they'll let you know. And eventually, once you start going to arraignment attempt number 2, 3, 4, 5, if you do that, you'll get a real good feel for them. Sometimes they play musical judges, and that makes it tough, one to the next. But you pretty much get the information you need to know within the first few minutes. Are they interrupting you? Are they letting you finish? Are they getting loud? Are they even threatening? Is there coordinated moves by the bailiff to back up the coercive threat the judge is putting out there? A bailiff can do whatever and nothing will show up on the transcript there. Like Robbie's had 4 or 5 bailiffs standing directly behind him just for the intimidation factor. So these are just things that I use to kind of feel out what can I get away with? Because the whole goal, and I don't recommend this to new people, but this was my goal once you get practiced at it, is we have this saying that if you don't get threatened with contempt, you're not pushing hard enough. And so that goal is to get right up to the threat, back off. When they give you quote unquote permission to speak again without throwing you in jail, you can push again, hit the threat, back off. But it's like a fine line. And so judges, some of them don't have that line. They'll never threaten you with contempt. Some will do it, as we've seen with Val, they'll throw you in 13 days of jail just for asking yes or no question with no warning. So it's our job to feel out Val was just hijacked, anybody would be there. But the job is to feel out instinctively how much they're going to let you get away with and to stay just this side of safety from that line, if that makes sense.
Because I have a judge coming up, and I did just a quick Google search, and I know that she's like a previous criminal defense attorney, civil attorney. She's a recent judge, so I know she's new. So I'm figuring out if I can know all of that beforehand, I kind of know what I can say to her specifically when I ask the questions and how to word them, with her being a prior defense attorney and now a judge.
Well, yeah, that's better than being a former prosecutor and then a fast track to a judge. Most of them come from the prosecutor side. So, I mean, yeah, okay, it's good to know that. I just wouldn't get into too much depth. I mean, you don't want to like know their home address and then drop that in a hearing. That would be too much, right?
Joe, on so many recordings, I was wondering if that was coming up.
Man, I would have liked to, but then I remember that some of these judges have young children, and I'm not going to take the tiniest bit of chance of they threw so-and-so else in prison for a long time or so-and-so's brother in prison for a long time, and they want to get back at him, and they don't have the resources or the brains to get that address, but now it's out there. Like, I was just like, nah.
Yeah.
Except Cheryl Hardy. She lives alone. I know exactly where that B word lives.
So what do you guys think about mixing Socrates with Sun Tzu with some of his strategies as far as court goes?
Well, one that comes to mind is know your opponent. Know the mind of your opponent. Another one that comes to mind is, where they're strong, you can retreat. And where they're weak, you advance. So kind of some yin yang to that. What else do you have in mind?
Can I add something with that?
Give it a shot.
What happened if they're like a new lawyer and you have no information about them? Nothing, like they're ghosts, pretty much.
Well, you can do a little bit of research online because some of this is public information about them. But the biggest indicator would probably be referrals from other people. You want to hear from other people that this lawyer served them well. However, most all lawyers play within the rule book that we don't like. They obey the rules that we don't like, and when we want to challenge the rules, they do not help us at all. And so it's actually better to become your own lawyer, because you're actually more effective than anybody who has to play by the rules. That's a short version, I guess. By the way, for everyone, this John X. Hancock in the room that was talking to Gary is the guy that's got a quote-unquote trial coming up on Friday.
Yeah. Friday.
Yeah, Friday 13th.
So what was your quote-unquote arraignment like?
It was, I don't know, I tried to send the Mark Stevens stuff, and I got an audio recording of it. They tried to kick me out of court for recording the audio, and I just recorded it anyway. And it was kind of like Joe heard a copy of the audio recording, and he said the judge is pretty softball. I don't know. I did kind of okay, but he ended up entering a plea for me. And
well, that's get rid of the idea that you did okay. I mean, because you failed completely, right? It took him a few minutes.
Yeah.
So do you have the right to plead guilty now?
What's that?
You have the right to plead guilty tomorrow?
Yeah, I can. I'm working on the motion to vacate the plea.
Okay.
Right now, and
do you know why you want to vacate the plea?
Because my due process is violated. I was trying to plead. I was trying to plead guilty.
Really? Hold on. Your due process was violated. Hold on. So your due process was violated. How do you know that?
How do I know that? Actually, I don't. That's my opinion.
Okay, so let's go back. Do you know why you want to vacate the plea?
I would like to vacate the plea because I was attempting to enter a plea. My intention was to enter a plea guilty.
Really?
And I was.
So are you stopped from doing that? Right now? I mean, you could send them a note saying I plead guilty. They'd be tickled.
Right. But I was trying to get information. I was trying to get informed of the cause.
There we go. Thank you. Oh my God, three tries in. Keep your eye on the ball, man. What's your real goal? Get information. Your real goal is to plead guilty. I mean, that's why you need the information. And if you're asking them, do I have the right to plead guilty? It's about, because. So what is the not guilty plea doing to stop you from getting information?
Well, that ended the arraignment when he ended the plea.
What do you mean? Okay. Okay. So what does ending the arraignment do to stop you from getting information?
Well, then
making me rephrase my question.
Maybe I'm not understanding it.
That's fine.
It's kind of like you have to get the judge to say these things to have it on the record. So they have, so they would have to. They can't contradict themselves or go back against them. They can, but
possibly. But you're moving away from the you getting information thing.
Right. So I'm getting information right now, but from them. I can't get any information.
Well, I mean, you're not. Them putting in a not guilty plea does not stop you from getting information from the world, right?
Right.
We were obviously talking about getting information from them.
Right. I think it did. Okay. I don't know how the way to do it.
Okay, so help me know what your understanding of that topic is. So I'm trying to figure out your perception of why the not guilty plea is hindering you from getting information.
Because I can only get information in court.
Well, you can be in court Friday morning and get information. Why does arraignment versus not arraignment change that? Why does the not guilty plea? You see, you're now saying in court, but you're in court before arraignment and you're in court after arraignment. So obviously that's not what changed. With the not guilty plea, you're still in court, so that's not what changed. So okay, so back to the question on the table. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, that ended my time at that time, and I don't know any other way. I went to the courthouse yesterday, and I asked for responses to my motions and my requests, and they wouldn't give them to me. They said they're going to deal with that. They refused to give them to me.
No. I mean, okay. So what does that have to do with the not guilty plea? They could have done that just as well with the not guilty plea versus saying, we're just going to reschedule this for Friday.
Like I said, I don't understand. What does it have to do with it?
I'm asking you.
What specifically? What are you trying? What are you asking for the relationship between the not guilty plea and what?
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out if you understand why the not guilty is in your way of getting information, and you seem to see it as just a rescheduling, same difference. No. So if instead of the not guilty plea, they just said we're rescheduling this, would it have been different?
Right, it's totally different because in the not guilty plea, that means that jurisdiction is accepted. It's at that point.
Whoa. Jurisdiction is accepted by the not guilty plea.
Right. Once you enter a plea, you are.
Did you enter the plea?
No, I did not enter a plea. The judge did.
Okay, so then why did you just say to me once you enter a plea? That's not relevant to your events. So I am the ball, man. I'm trying to get you to be clear and focused.
Okay, my understanding is that when you enter a plea, you are.
When who enters a plea?
The person being accused, the alleged.
Did you do so?
No.
So the rest of the sentence cannot be relevant to what I'm asking you. Agreed?
Yeah, that's my hope. Yeah, I would definitely.
Okay, so why are you saying something that cannot be relevant to my question? And I'm being hard on you so that you learn to be hard on others in the same way.
Cool. I'm totally down. I'm kind of like looking at it from this is how they're going to see it because they entered a plea for me.
Hold on. If they're delusional, why would I ask you a question and expect you to spout delusional crap at me? I'm asking you for your understanding of reality.
Okay, you want reality. Okay.
I want your understanding of logic and reality here.
Okay.
If you want to go into somebody else's perspective, if you want to talk about delusions, at least give me the courtesy of saying, I think that their delusion is going to be XYZ. Don't say XYZ. It's like, no. Don't share that delusion. You know?
Got it.
Okay.
No problem. All right. Yeah, basically, the plea was entered for me, and I was.
Was it? Hold on. you keep trying to throw out something really weird and then follow it up so that I can't object. The plea was entered for you, so it was entered to benefit you. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's obviously
okay. Not. So you don't mean it was entered for you. You mean something else. Because if I do something for you, if I make breakfast for you, it's a benefit. You know, I'll leave out my normal example of something that's not for you because there's children in the room. But let's see, what's another alternative? If I can't step on your foot for you, I cannot take your car away from you for you. It's not English. In English, for you means something for your benefit.
Right.
So to your detriment. Okay, so they put in a plea to your detriment?
His words were, I'm going to enter a plea for you.
Okay, so if a guy tells you, I'm going to eat your lunch for you, and grabs the plate out from in front of you at a restaurant, takes it over to his table and eats it, would you say that? He's eating my lunch for me. How nice of him. Okay. So I understand that they said that, but you saying it to me means that you accept that as reality. So when you're speaking about reality, be careful. Don't say he ate my lunch for me.
I don't know. It's the only way I've heard it phrased, so I don't really know an alternate way to.
I know. So in your mind, you're unable to separate yourself from that delusion and from that lie because you don't have an alternative way of saying it. But just because they say, I'm eating your lunch for you, and you can't think of a way to say he stole my lunch, doesn't mean he didn't steal your lunch.
Right, and it doesn't mean I'm not aware of it either. I just don't know habits.
Okay, so words are very, very meaningful, especially in these settings. And when you're talking to me about reality, and you can't think of a way to convey reality, and instead you just give me the phrase that sounds lawyerly, or the phrase that the judge fed you, that's what I'm keying off of and saying, hey, we have an opportunity here to improve his ability to perceive reality and communicate about reality, because they're going to hang you on your inability to talk about reality and ethics. Okay, so I'm giving you a phrase. They entered a plea to your detriment, which they called to your benefit. How about that phrase? That's a little cumbersome, but in your mind, that's what I would hope you kind of see it as, right?
Yeah, that is challenges. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So not spewing out what they ended the plea for me, man, because you say that, they're like, okay, good, next step. They sent me to jail for me, you know?
Got it.
They had a kangaroo trial for me. So, okay. So this thing that they're saying is for you, this plea, it's not even really a plea. It's just them proclaiming their delusion that they're going to act like you pled not guilty. Because if you had pled not guilty in reality, that would be communicating to them that you understand the cause and nature of the proceedings, what you're accused of, what your obligations are, and all this fun stuff. And that you're taking the first step in those obligations of saying, I hereby ask you to treat me and to investigate if I'm not guilty. That's a really crappy position.
Pretty much.
And the position that I'm at, because that excludes this position. The position that I think of that is designed especially to combat is, I don't know if I owe you obedience. The question, the challenge on the table is there evidence that I owe obedience? Usually phrased as, is there evidence that these laws, statutes, whatever they be, apply to me? And that this court has jurisdiction is a secondary kind of question. And that this court has the ethical justification to hold me to them and to judge me on these rules. Now, if you plead, that's off the table. That question is done. Now, that's not off the table completely, because there is one part of it called standing that can be challenged at any time. All you got to do is say, hey, by the way, this issue here was never addressed. But there is part of that where it's like your personal ideas and objection goes away. It's for sound jurisdiction, but let's not get too, I don't want to get too weighed down, but in general, it's just a challenging jurisdiction is a bit not off the table, but shoved aside with the plea, which is why they like to say, I'm going to enter a plea for you. You're here asking questions that I don't want to answer about the cause and nature of these proceedings, and asking me to have my best friend state his case, and I don't want to do that. Because a lawyer who can get into court with a case that isn't properly stated has a much easier job.
I don't know what job. It's crazy.
Can I ask you a question regarding public defenders?
Go for it.
In your experience, are they someone that you can actually trust and to be trying to defend you, or are they really just working with the state prosecution to
their primary job is to ensure that there are no appealable errors, and that is the number one top of the list thing that they're there to do. And anything that conflicts with that they'd get in trouble for letting something else take priority over that. So keeping that in mind is a big thing, and that's hard to understand what I just said, I'm sure. but ensuring that there are no appealable errors. What does that mean to you, maybe? Can you give it a stab?
There's nothing that can be used to declare a mistrial, is what I would like. So you can appeal.
No. Appealable errors, like mistrial would be before that. So if you're into appeals, your mistrial is no longer relevant.
Okay.
Appealable. Ensure that there are no appealable errors.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that entails.
Okay. They're there to work. They're there to work to make sure that the record doesn't include stuff that an appeals panel would need to look at. That it's clear of things that an appeal panel would need to address.
And therefore overturn the original judge's decision, obviously.
So that's their first thing, right? That's their main duty is to the court to ensure that there are no appealable errors. And believe me, I mean, they won't let much get in the way of that. So if that includes throwing you under a bus, they'll do so.
One of the biggest.
So it's not getting you free that is their main goal. No appealable errors. Now sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes the prosecutor's trying to sneak something by that would result in an appealable error, and a defense attorney will do something good in that he's fighting that. But sometimes it works very much against your best interests, especially on the topic of challenging jurisdiction.
Can I chime in real quick? I think that
Please.
a defender is to make sure there's no appealable errors. Our job when we go in is to make appealable errors. So we can
Yes, very, very well phrased. I think Joe was saying yes too. We were all giving you resounding yeses.
Yeah, John X and I were talking about appealable errors a little bit in his hearing. He got, this judge was kind of a snowflake. Didn't even get loud, let alone threaten him with contempt. And he had kind of backed him into a corner through the whole script of, has the prosecutor provided any factual evidence, getting to that point, that the judge just out of the blue, out of nowhere entirely, despite him stating he had an intention to plead guilty, said, oh, okay, well, I'm going to enter a plea of not guilty for you. And just out of the blue like that. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest appealable errors is, and this is why they go to so much trouble, is to sell the illusion, especially on the transcript, obviously, that this is voluntary, free of coercion, and informed. That's why they even ask, when you go to do a guilty plea because you're forced to for whatever reason, let's say a hypothetical person, oh, is this guilty plea free, voluntary, and of your own volition? The language like this, even though clearly everyone knows it's not.
Yeah. Here, you need to tell us this lie in order to kind of make this look better. So if you're wanting to put this down, you're going to have to get one more big lie at it.
Yeah. Because if we strong-armed you clearly on the record and like threatened you with a very scary max penalty, that would not hold up on appeal. They have to sell that that's not only fair, but that you're volunteering for it, ultimately.
Yeah.
So fucking crazy.
Yeah, at the least, it's crazy.
Dang.
But it's highly effective, highly efficient, and highly profitable to them.
It's diabolical.
Damn. So what's to prevent like them from just steamrolling you regardless of what you say or how much sense the questions make or where it puts them?
Good question. Yeah, good question.
Politics is the short answer.
Well,
You're like, well, what does that mean?
Very difficult. Very little. That's what it. I mean, let's be clear. Very little prevents them. It's you have to construct a political situation that makes that judge look bad. How do you describe that?
It's like you have to get them emotionally uncomfortable.
based upon how he thinks he's being perceived.
A bit, yeah. And based upon how he thinks his boss is going to look at his, I mean, part of their job is to make it look good, right? To make it look like, everything's going, nice and noiselessly, and the justice that they can put a big old justice label on all this crap that they're putting out there, right? And if the judge is not doing well at keeping it under wraps, that there's a fundamental injustice involved, then he's starting to look bad, and he's gonna, he might cut it loose rather than tear up his. He might cut the fish loose rather than tear up his line, as it were.
Right. So, what's the inner sanctum of the judge's little secret society? I mean, does anybody know what's it like to be a judge? What kind of pressures do you feel from your bosses? I mean, how intense is that?
Judging roughly by what we've seen in different judges, it really depends on where they're at and kind of the structure. Like if they're the presiding judge in their area, they get pretty ballsy. But if there's some lower guy to some a little bit more noble-minded maybe judge, they behave a little differently. It's just a luck of the draw kind of crowd.
Yeah.
I've seen judges who, it seemed to me, through multiple hearings, actually believed that they were good guys on the side of justice, serving the public, even from traffic court with their nonsense extortion. I've also seen judges through multiple hearings who it was apparent that they knew exactly what they were and what they were doing, despite everything I was confronting them with. They just didn't care. They were just taking this big fat paycheck and, hey, I got the power, you don't, c'est la vie.
Yeah.
Corrupt.
But politically too, when we say politically, how do we beat them politically? I mean, to me, I see two main things right off the top of my head. There might be more, just off the top of my head, that they're super motivated by. One is to prevent the perception that they are bullies. Human beings all have this desire to root for the underdog, and they just don't want to be perceived as the bully, the violent bully. And two, they don't want us to have a hearing that is so effectively and easily digested by the undereducated public behind you in a way that makes them go, oh, how did he get away with that? If he just said these certain easy words I was able to follow, why can't I get away with it too? And we're both up for a speeding ticket. Why is it that I'm pleading not guilty and paying just like that, and yet he's able to do this? Like, the more people behind you that digest that, the more it seems to scare them. I mean, I've just seen, obviously multiple times I've seen judges go bang, unplanned recess, and rush off the bench. Multiple times.
Now, to hijack that a little bit and go back on something that was kind of discussed a little earlier, can you imagine, like, if the visibility into courtrooms was what they pretend it, quote unquote, should be, like public court, if the visibility was complete in the sense that, nowadays just about everything's on camera. If we had YouTube feeds constantly of what's really going on in these places, and you could actually see, kind of like you do with cops now, that blow up of misbehaved cops and their inability to kind of say, well, it's just a few bad apples. And it's like, whoa, hold on, you really have a bigger problem than a few bad apples, when just about every video out there is either overtly them, saving out of a tree, or them beating somebody,
Yeah.
And then the judges were giving the same thing, where it's, you have discussions about their dishonesty and their lack of justice and their lies. Where does the world go? What happens next? They're scared to death of that prospect, I think.
Yeah.
Which is why they're really clamping down on any video.
I think it might be the same principle, just like, how they always wanted to censor the coffins draped in American flags that were coming back from war, and they've always wanted to censor war itself and the fact that people die in it and all this, the innocent, the suffering of the innocent, to hide that. when people go to court, I mean, this is a much smaller scale than war. I'm just trying to make the same point here. When people go into court, these people who don't know any better, and they just, for whatever, like some kind of misdemeanor, right? They know they're in trouble, and they just want to do what they're told, because what they're told is this is how you have to suffer the least amount of punishment, is to do what I'm told, do exactly what I'm told. And then once they're free of it, they're no longer concerned with dealing with it at all. They're just like, oh, now I'm free of that pain. I'm going to go continue and live my life. And so they have no interest whatsoever in exposing what just happened to them. It's in yesterday's rearview mirror to them. But if what happened to all these people was, as Gary says, on YouTube level exposure, this is my point. I believe it would be the end of all nonviolent victimless crimes, which would end the majority of their funding, which would end the ability to pay bribes, which would end their monopoly on power. It'd be the end of them.
Amen.
And they know it.
They know it. One of the big things you hear whenever you mention, going up against a judge or fighting anything is, don't piss off that judge. That's one of people's biggest fears. You hear it over and over again. They know, don't piss off that judge. And if people actually knew that judges get pissed off by the simplest, innocent, quote unquote, question that challenges them, they'd have to reevaluate. I mean, there's a certain population that wouldn't, but there's a certain population that would say, wait a minute, that's a completely normal, justified question that I might ask if it popped into my head. And that judge went from smiling to throwing him in jail with no further comment because he asked it.
He's something to that.
Like, yeah, as long as they're gay, going.
No.
This is audio already, so.
Yeah,
sorry,
I didn't hear that.
I didn't hear something.
Yeah, it's hard to understand. Maybe you got to speak right in that microphone or something.
Can I ask you a question though?
I didn't make that out either. Darn it.
He just wants to ask a question. What's your question?
It's George. This house was caught up.
Yeah, for a moment to get his question together or something.
Like record a cop, are you allowed to in the law? What happens if they like break his phone and say they're not allowed to record them? Are they allowed?
That happens. That happens as well. So there's some people who say you're allowed to, and there's some people who say that the cops will break your phone.
Above all else, what we don't do is fight back. We're there to minimize the damage to our bodies and violence against us. So there are times when on the street with the cops, you simply do what they say so that we can go fight it in court where you have a chance to have the support of other people instead of just you alone with no camera and a violent police officer. A lot of people want to fight and struggle when they try to get arrested, and that's about the worst thing you can do.
They got shotgun.
Yeah. Yeah, the time for kicking is not when their foot's on your neck.
Yeah.
When that.
At that point, it's not kicking; it's just flailing.
Yeah.
I saw him handcuffed a pretty bigger set guy on his hands behind his back on his knees, and then came up to them and then pushed him down into the ground in his face so he couldn't break his fall.
Yeah, a lot of videos like that, curb stomping and all that kind of stuff. You see some crazy stuff. And you're seeing it now because, I mean, before it used to just be talked about and people could just dismiss it as like, you're just exaggerating. It's like, now we have video day in, day out. And it's like with the video, they had to cut it down. I mean, the advent of video had to cut the incidence of these things down, and it's still everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The thing about authority is that it relieves people of personal responsibility for their actions. It's like, you do what I tell you to, and you can do anything. It's just like, how can that ever be?
Well, I mean, there's always going to be wolves.
Yeah. Hey, so there's a lot of guys in the YouTube chat that are claiming that citizens exist. I'd love to see them get in here and try to defend that assertion.
Yeah, we've been around with that. There are absolutely, unequivocally people who are labeled as citizens, right, wrong, or indifferent. There are definitely people who are called that. But I mean, yeah.
So what's your argument again? I
don't know. It depends. If I'm arguing against the idea that there are people who are labeled as citizens, right, wrong, or indifferent, then I already lose. There are definitely people, but are there people who owe a duty of allegiance? That's the question. And are any of those people who owe a duty of allegiance also enjoying a duty of protection, which
only the cops and people, the employees of the government.
But it's not a duty of protection to them either. It's just a kind of like if the politics kind of go that way, then they're protecting each other.
Right.
Don't forget.
Yeah, so duty is the operative word, right? Duty of allegiance, a duty of protection.
And
So the crux of the issue is see if even a single one of them can provide evidence that both of those assertions are true. Duty of allegiance in exchange for a duty of protection. I would love to see one of these YouTube commenters, even just one, come on and prove with evidence that both of those exist.
Well, I mean, arguably, the person most likely to actually have some kind of a duty of protection upon him would be like the president, right? And I don't think that if the president could harm, he would get very far in court or anything like that trying to sue for the failure of protection. So I'm saying the strongest case for a duty of protection, the person who that would be the target of, I can't imagine him winning a case.
Well,
on the topic of the failure to provide it, to provide the protection.
Right.
So does it all just fall apart, right?
Sure. Well, let me shift it away from the president. And one of the things that I was watching a YouTube video on recently is the alt-right rallies and speeches in Charlottesville, where they had the permits, so they were supposed to have this ground to demonstrate their do the demonstrations at according to their permit. And this lawyer, who's I assume public defender, was arguing that since there is no duty to protect, then they can't sue us for failing to protect them. And the three judges were arguing against this lawyer and saying that that would be true, except that these cops who were supposed to be enforcing this permit forced them to take exit A instead of exit B, where if the cops allowed them to take exit A, they would have suffered less and probably no harm, whereas the cops forcing them to take exit B forced them to go through militant commerce.
So to be clear, this question is revolving around a positive action.
Exactly.
That was incorrect. And that's a very big difference. That's a very big difference than a duty to protect. That's a duty not to do additional damage, or a duty not to suggest a troubled course. So that's kind of the different topic, from those things.
Right. I agree, but I thought it was interesting, and I think it'd be more interesting to get some of these YouTube keyboard warriors in here to defend their assertions that citizens exist. And I know they're listening, which is why I'm bringing it up.
Well, again, if it's merely that there are people who call themselves citizens, or people who judges call citizens, I can't disagree. But if you actually want to take it to, there are people for whom there is a reciprocal obligation of, allegiance and protection.
So you don't think people should have a duty to kind of give in to protect, give in to the state that resides over us? Like,
wait, what do you mean? Well, okay, try to be clear. So people have a duty to obey the state that you said presides over us. So whatever state presides over someone. But see, the word presides actually means the answer. So any state that claims to preside over someone, then they owe a duty of allegiance to that state. Is that what you're saying?
Well, as long as it's beneficial to the citizen.
Okay, so if it's so the easy way to tell if something is beneficial to somebody is that they volunteer to it. Right. If something benefits them according to their own judgment, they want it. So that's easy. So it's not even a duty at that point. Obviously, they're going to obey a beneficial order. If you order me to go gather up $1 million off the table, I will do so.
Fair point.
Well, notice he made the assertion within that they said that these citizens exist and they benefit from.
Yeah, Gabe. Let me.
He's using the word to describe the word.
Right. Let me. This is very Gabe. This is very Gabe. I just want to jump in here, because otherwise it's going to go on forever. So, Gabe, this citizen issue to me is very simple, and I know, Gabe, you like to kind of convince the people who are stubbornly against what we're saying. And how I break this down is real quick, real easy. I put it in the chat. Okay, if they're ever saying there's a duty of protection, well, even their own Supreme Court ruled there's no such protection. That cops don't have any kind of obligation. But I don't know what more they need than that. If they won't listen to that level of logic, I'm going to move on to the next person who's actually on their way to the water to drink, right? And then on the other side of this, on the other side of that, I put it lower. Let's see. I said people who claim to be citizens are like rape victims claiming to have a romantic relationship. When they say this duty of allegiance, right? How is that expressed? Oh, well, it's by, paying speeding tickets, obeying all their little laws, big, small, and through quote unquote taxes. But they don't want to recognize or admit what happens to them. A, what happens to them if they don't pay their taxes, and B, the fact that everyone, just virtually everyone, even if they're a diehard statist, if they can pull some legal loophole and pay less taxes, they do. They always do. Therefore, and why? Because they realize the threat deep down inside, even if they don't want to admit it. There's nothing voluntary about it. There's no reciprocal obligation. There's no equality going on here. It is, I've got the gun, you'll do what I say. And for those people who don't want to look at that and reevaluate that, I just move on. They're currently incapable of the level of logic that this 12-year-old in this room has. Therefore, I'm going to spend my time and energy on somebody else. And Gabe, man, years later, you're still beating on brick walls like that. Like, just let it go. Move on to the next. You know what I mean? Like, these people, this Arian and whoever else in the chat room, if they come up against what I just said and they're still like, oh, no, I'm a citizen, next.
You're grizzled, man. You're grizzled.
Well, I just have no sheep deserve to be sheared. I have no pity for them. They pay the taxes that help enslave all the innocents and are a major pain in everyone's ass, including mine. I have no pity for them. There are plenty of people out there who are much more willing of being helped in how they want to be helped and much more capable intellectually of reaching a potential that will free them from it. And if they expose that they're just not, and they'll suffer the consequences for it. And when the pain gets too great, then and only then will they come crawling back considering something else, like, oh, wait, I thought I was of the protected class. Oh, they just beat me bloody for some stupid nonviolent victim of crime. Oh, no, now my eyes are open. It's just...
Yeah. People who think they're people who think that they are a net beneficiary are a lot less skeptical of government.
Yeah. Yeah. Net positive beneficiary. Yeah.
And usually they're not. You know, if they were to investigate, I mean, one of the whole public relations games is to make people think that they are a bigger beneficiary than they are.
Yeah, it's,
you know, the most. I don't know. You know, it takes a pretty ardent politician to get into a lifestyle that is a truly net gain system.
Yeah. To me, it's no different than in the prison yard, where the smaller inmate wants protection, doesn't want to believe that they're the lapdog, to put a mild, kind word, of the big, huge bully in the prison yard, because they give him one of their meals per day. They're like, oh no, this one meal per day that I voluntarily give up to the big bully who protects me. Oh no, that's a reciprocal agreement. Yeah, we're all on the same page here. No, he's demanding that meal, and he's claiming to protect you, but he's actually not. And they have to convince themselves that that's the way it is, so that they don't have to look in the mirror and see a fool. And a coward. It's just mental self-protection. And one day they'll snap out of it when the pain gets too great. But I move on. That's all. Yeah, grizzled. Yeah, maybe. One of them was arguing earlier. It was like, oh, yeah, well, if you get a visa, then you're a citizen. Nobody forced you to walk in that door. And I'm just going, Christ. Yeah, rape victims are in a romantic relationship, buddy. Yep.
Yeah, usually it's about the driver's license is voluntary. It's like,
No.
So if you told everybody that they're welcome to drive around in their cars without the license, that anyone would do so? That anyone would get a license, that is?
Read the fine print on any driver's license application, and you will be not only signing it exactly how they demand you sign it, but you'll be signing your name to a lie. Multiple lies that bind you to Constitution, quote unquote, protections, just shredding them in half. It's unreal.
Well, that's a good question. Is that the signature? I mean, I write whatever the hell I need to write to live safely and as with as little bullshit restraints as possible. You know, they tell me to sign this, okay. Tell me to sign that, okay. I'll do whatever lessens the impact of their violence.
Yep. I mean, they do accept an X.
Well, you know, it's whatever it is, right? It's like, this isn't a signature.
Nah. Yeah,
you know, if someone pulls a gun to your head and says you're going to sign away the deed to your house, that's not signed. That's just you contending with a violent situation. Even if the next day they say, okay, if you go rescinding this signature, I'm going to shoot you. It's like, okay, that just sits there with the name on it. But it's nothing to do with signatures and agreements. There's no relationship between agreements and contracts and license applications and permits and all this crap.
It's much cheaper to have slaves working for you who believe they're not slaves than break out the chains and whips. It's just cheaper way to farm human beings.
If you can convince them that they're voluntarily on the plantation, even better.
Even better. And then they'll defend the plantation and help enslave other people, thinking that, I'm satisfied. Yeah. It's comical if it wasn't tragic.
Yeah. It'll be comical later.
And I'm all for people, again, who go without licenses and so forth because they don't want to put their name to it. I understand that, too.
It's funny how everyone always calls themselves a citizen. The way I see it is, if you want to call yourself a citizen, call yourself a citizen. You want to go by the government's rules, that's fine. You want to be a sheep. Everyone in this chat that actually participate is asking the question, prove I'm a sheep.
But see, at the same time, I mean, I'm going to Germany here in a couple days, and I'm proudly proclaiming, no, you mixed that word. That was a joke. I am loudly proclaiming to be a citizen. so that they don't stop me from doing something that's completely peaceful.
Yeah.
You know, there's no alternative. It's either proclaim you're loyal, or we're going to stop you from doing things that are completely ethical to do.
This coming from a government that will allow you to change your biological gender or check the box other, but they won't give you a box other when it comes to U.S. citizen. You will identify as they allow in one and then not in the other. It's insane. It's
you will proclaim this label our bitch, or we will treat you more brutally. Be a citizen or else.
You are clearly male biologically, and they will allow you to be considered under all law female, but you have no choice other than to be a citizen.
If there was a appreciable tax difference, that question would be very different.
Yeah. I just saw
suddenly the state would not be interested in letting people become female.
Yeah.
For instance,
Gary, I just saw a story of a guy who perfectly straight, you know, his whole life, and he only changed on all the legal documentation from male to female because where he lived, women were allowed to retire at 60, but men had to be 65. Isn't that the best?
I want this.
I
want
know.
this story.
Dude, it's on the YouTube channel called They Call That a Clue. It's this ex-cop, ex-military guy who breaks down all cop videos and just makes fun of them. They call it, yeah, brilliant, right?
Because there was a disparity in the legal treatment of genders, so he just used it.
Now get this. There's another story, and I've seen the pictures. This guy played college basketball for like 4 or 5 years, and that's all the eligibility you get. Now he's like 52, and he's like, oh, I identify as a college female. Not only is he on the team, he was given another 4 or 5 years of eligibility. He looks just like a man.
How
he's
old?
52. He's 8 inches taller than second place on the team. He's huge. He used to play college ball. And
and he's dominating the sport at 52
Yes.
in the
Yes. This is the government that wants you to be a citizen. And these people are like, oh, yeah, I'm on board. Woo!
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Well, I mean, if it actually removes the differences in legal treatment and the privileges, then I guess that's an interesting move, right?
So, yeah. I mean, it reduces their illusion of legitimacy and their nonsense.
How do you break down, like, kind of like what you did earlier, Gary, when you were talking to me? It's kind of like something in it's like you gave me the languages to use to describe reality. Because I think people are stuck in this thing where we think in words, and we can only use the words that we know. And
right.
so we're kind of stuck in these ruts of thought based upon our past experience and what's commonly,
So one of the very first things that got me into this was a linguistic question. So I'm half German. If you want to, just in the vernacular, let's put it that way. And so I was raised with, multiple languages, and one of the things that kind of was interesting to me is, as a teenager, was that there were concepts that I couldn't phrase, like put the language together. There's words over there that don't exist here. There's words here that don't really exist there. And there's concepts that are really clunky to put together, so people just kind of skip them in their mind. And I found that super interesting. When I came back and I had an accent and I had trouble kind of speaking, I was about 12, and so a few years later, that kind of came back around to the idea that there's language things that are keeping me from certain thoughts and just making thoughts daunting and hard to develop. And I started I started thinking about the language around liberty. This is pretty early, but I'm summarizing a whole bunch of years. But more recently, the teenager years, I started trying to find language to convey ideas of ethics. I'm applying a current thinking to me then. It wasn't that formulated, but it kind of came to the same thing where, you know, I was wanting language to talk about unfairness against the unfairness of powerful people. And there's really not a language for that. And all the words that kind of are right for that are really clunky and weird and unknown and unused. And so that became interesting to me. And a lot of my life is geared, like I told Joe recently, I said, it's like, you know, the events of my life made me, you know, pegged out on this liberty thing just because that's how it came together. So that's one of the things is this language interest about how to talk about something that's difficult to talk about. How we're missing weird words like challenging power. Might makes right is a super important concept. We have that phrase, that might makes right. And we don't have the rest of the language around it. It's like all that's stripped away of injustice. When we say injustice, we think about the dictate of masters. We don't think about injustice, the what the word really means. We think about what's declared rather than what's inherent. Right. So yeah, so I started developing little phrases, and that's been an interest of mine, and you know, trying to chisel away at a way to make other people kind of grasp that. What I'm trying to communicate, you know, try to grasp what's coming out of my head, and trying to find phrases that kind of help it click and things like that.
Right. Yeah. I think it's about providing information, and it's almost like you can't wake anybody up. Everybody has to wake up on their own to the idea, but you have to provide the information at every opportunity.
Yeah, and it's a language development. The language isn't there. You know, it's like almost like you have to develop a vocabulary to talk about, just like you said. He pled guilty for me. Or not guilty for me, I'm sorry. He pled not guilty for me. And I'm like, dude, you said the opposite of what you mean. Damn it, you know?
Right.
There is no word in that sentence that makes sense. He pled. Well, he wasn't. He was pretending to plead for you. He was pretending that you pled. He pled not guilty, meaning kind of like you owe them a trial. So that's kind of the opposite of not guilty, even, for me. And when it's actually against you. So he pled not guilty for me. There's not a single word in there that is actually true. It's like insanely backwards.
He entered a plea of not guilty on behalf of the prosecution.
Yeah. And pretended that I did it.
Yeah. And pretended that I did it, yeah.
And announced that everybody was going to pretend that it was me that did it. Crazy.
I don't even warn people first before talking to you, Gary. I just let the tsunami hit the beach.
Well, I mean, you know, you want to approach something and try to goad people into chatting a little bit. I love that. Goad people into saying things and saying, what do you mean by that? What did you just have in your head? Well, because what you said is kind of like probably not what you intended to have in your head.
Yeah, it makes people realize that you will be held accountable for every word that you say. And the sooner you get that, the more effective you'll be in a courtroom. Every single word. They rule by words. You know, this is the battleground.
Right. And that's why questions, yes or no questions, simple, quote unquote, innocent sounding questions that dig at things are really a good approach. And why I find that anything where you have an assertion to make, like sovereign citizen stuff or whatever, you know, right to travel or all this stuff is so wrong-headed, because you have to communicate effectively and kind of like to file down this assertion And it's so hard to keep that anything useful, even with somebody who's being cooperative. It's hard to communicate such an idea. And when someone's actually deliberately trying to sabotage the idea you're trying to put down, man, you got no chance.
Right. You're actually ever going to be able to convince a judge that you're right and he's wrong. Like, that's ever going to happen.
No. The only way to convince him is to convince him that his boss would actually be upset with him for ruling for the prosecutor. Not going to happen. His boss is not going to come down and say, we're making entirely too much money off these people. You're going to have to give some away.
Yeah. God. I have a question about, there's been no prosecutor or prosecution was not there at the arraignment, and I was told by the judge.
Hold on.
Okay.
There's no prosecutor or no prosecution at the arraignment.
Right.
Are you referring to a person?
Both the prosecution. There was nobody there representing the prosecution at the arraignment.
Okay. So could the prosecution have been represented a little statue? A little Monopoly piece, maybe?
Well, sure.
Okay. Could the prosecution be represented by a piece of paper?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's
okay. And could the prosecution have been represented by a piece of paper where the prosecution wrote down what he wants to accuse you of and set it on that judge's desk?
Yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so it's entirely possible that the prosecution was represented there today or that day, right?
Okay. But here's the kicker. The judge told me that the prosecution will not be at the trial either. So there will be no.
Okay. So who is going to be? Well, there's two questions. One is who is going to inform you of the cause and nature of the proceedings on points that you have questions about that aren't contained within the paperwork already submitted, right? And two, and that's a big, huge one, by the way. So let's come back to that one in a minute. And two, who is going to be? So in a trial, there are 4 phases. Right? Prosecution presents his case. You cross that, right? You tear that down in some way, shape, or form. You present your defense, and the prosecution tears that down in some form. And at the end of that, 4 quarters, so to speak, is the verdict and decision and stuff like that. Right. So if there's no prosecution, how does the very first leg of things happen? Does it just go to you presenting your defense?
I guess there's the witness, the cop who
hold on.
I don't know. I don't know the answer. That's okay. I got it.
So who is the judge going to be presenting the case?
That's what it seems like.
Okay. Do you have the right to be informed of the cause and nature of these proceedings?
The judge said yes, but I wasn't informed.
Okay, hold on. I didn't ask you that. So the judge admitted that you have a right to be informed of the cause and nature of the proceedings. Okay. So did you have any questions about these topics that I'm asking you about now? At the time.
Yes, I did. I asked. Let's see. What did I ask? I said, so who filed the complaint?
Hold on. No. There's so many topics on the table. Please try not to drag new ones on. So the things I asked about just now were who's going to be informing you. Well, I asked a couple things. I'm sorry. So there's already a bunch on the table. Things like who's going to be informing you of things that you have questions about the case that aren't in the paperwork so far. And the other one is who's going to be presenting the case against you.
Right.
Okay. So did you ask either of those two, for instance? I'll start with those.
I didn't ask that. That's what I was trying to ask, and I wasn't.
Wait, hold on. You were trying as a, like, did you have trouble translating it to English, or did you? What do you mean you were trying to ask?
It was my first time in court.
Okay, hold on. I'll grant you all the faults of a normal human being and not judge you harshly for them. But when you say I was trying to do something, right? I'm trying to figure out what you're trying to communicate to me. I'm trying to say, were you stuttering and gave up, or was it that some group guy tackled you and put a ball gang in your mouth? I'm trying to figure out what you mean by trying to. Meaning you hoped to, but you felt intimidated to, or what?
I was kind of. I asked the judge. I said, "Where's the prosecution as far as in the arraignment?"
Hold on. So by trying to, you mean that you asked things that sounded iffy, close to this, but you weren't able to come across this thought? I'm trying to figure out what you meant by trying to ask these questions.
Well, at some point during the arraignment, I asked, I said, "Who's here representing the prosecution?"
Okay. What does that have to do? I'm trying to keep it to the topic on the table.
Okay.
It's not a who, it's a what. It's a piece of paper.
I'm trying to ask you what you meant. Oh, sorry. Is that Joe?
No, I was just pointing out that earlier he said the piece of paper could represent the prosecution. But now he's bringing up that he questioned who was like a person. Like we talked about this, the difference between a prosecutor and a prosecution.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to figure out at the arraignment who was
okay.
Like
okay, so you were basically trying to investigate a similar-ish topic to what I'm trying to kind of poke at right now, and that's what you mean by you were trying to. You were on the similar page, but okay. So part of human mentality is that we have tons and tons of thoughts going around our subconscious and sometimes conscious all the time. And if I tell you about thought that you could have had at the time, you will quite correctly say that, yes, that was in my head at the time. Because that's how our brains work. There's tons and tons of just noise in there. And the things that we choose to bring forward to our conscious and choose then to cultivate into a language question, that's the things that are important. The rest of it is just buried deep. And it's all there. So the fact that you say, hey, that was in my head at the time, great, but not important. What I'm talking about is the things that made it to your conscious and made it all the way out your mouth.
Okay.
So consider me as being kind of uninterested in the general thought soup.
Right.
Okay. And not to be harsh. Now, I'm trying to be your friend here, and I'm trying to be harsh on you so you learn to be harsh on others.
No worries.
Okay. So you hoped to have had questions and they didn't formulate about some of these specific things. Do you still have the right to know these things, by the way?
Yes.
Great.
I would hope so.
So Friday morning, you will still have the right to know what the heck the prosecution, who is going to be presenting the prosecution that you're going to be, cross-examining and then defending against, right? And who's stating a case, or who did state the case, I guess, is more important, right?
Right. It just says the prosecution or the prosecutor will not be at the trial.
Hold on, I gotcha. I remember that. My memory's weird, but I remember that part. So the question I had was, who's going to be prosecuting the case? And you said, the judge said the prosecutor's not going to be there. That's great, interesting information, but not an answer to my question.
I don't know.
Because he could be doing it via text message, ESP, I don't give a damn. But someone states a case and presents it. They might have already done so in paperwork. Okay? And that's all good and well. I don't have any objection to that. But the question is, so let's say I'm a prosecutor that doesn't care to actually show up. I submit my crap in paper. I don't care to cross-examine. You can cross-examine. I'm not even going to be there to object. I'm going to let it go on autopilot. I'm going to present it in paper. You can cross-examine there. I won't be there to object. Don't even care to be there. You can present your defense, and I'm not even going to be there to cross-examine your defense. I'm that confident that judge is going to screw you over. I'm not even going to bother to show. Okay? So There's a question in here, though. Namely, a failure to prosecute. How do you bring up the issue of a failure to prosecute? Because there's things, he's given up his ability to kind of correct his course. He's given up the ability to correct his shit by not being there. Hey, that's a weakness, not a strength. Right?
Right.
So you need to turn that weakness into a real weakness. Now, he knows that judge is going to grab that mantle for him. They're going to grab those reins and do his job, no problem, right? So any question that you ask that's not anywhere in the paperwork, for example, that the judge answers, the question that springs to my mind is, are you getting that from the prosecutor's information, or are you submitting that? Is that something the prosecutor told you, or are you adding to the case?
Right. Are you acting on his behalf?
Not quite the same thing.
Okay.
The judge would be acting on his own behalf, not the prosecutor's. It's like, is that something that the prosecutor is presenting, or are you presenting that, judge? You know?
And that could be pretty much asked at almost every.
Uh-oh. I lost him. Uh-oh. Back up to the rescue. 1 second, 1 second. Uh-oh. This whole thing might have gone down. Ah. Oh no. I'm not getting on my backup either. Well, good grief. This stream is already 2 hours and 34 minutes. I'm going to shut it off here, figure out what's going on. And if you want to continue on this, then get in the Discord and you'll be able to listen. How's that? I'll put some follow-up comments in the description eventually. And yeah, I'm gonna be bailiff watching, court watching, cop watching tomorrow morning. Name of the new channel is Ethics Instead. Check it out. Thanks for joining me, everybody. It was good. It was good times. Good stream. Thanks. Wouldn't be good without you. What the devil happened?